Hello everyone, this is Power once again with a follow-up video to my previous video regarding the UNR's mass messaging program. First, I would like to thank LinkedIn for so quickly issuing his response to my video. Obviously, the MMP is a precedent-setting event to the community, and conversation regarding this topic should be placed in public forum so that the community might be provided with most accurate information and the best arguments from all sides of the debate. With that in mind, I'll begin. In this video, I'll first directly respond to the 9 responses the UNR gave to my questions regarding the MMP. For each of these, I'll refer to both the UNR's presidential address as well as a comment posted on my video by Seth, a web team member for the UNR and presumably the actual programmer behind the MMP. It is important to note that Seth's comments were approved by LinkedIn, and so, as such, they should be viewed as entirely valid and second only in authority to LinkedIn's comments himself. To quote the header of the comment by Seth, "The views expressed in this post are reflective of the views of the UNR President LinkedIn, as he has reviewed and approved the contents of this post." Before I actually give my analysis of the UNR's responses, I feel now would be a good time to explain exactly why I asked these questions. These 9 questions served 2 particular goals. The first 3 questions were part of a logic test, while the latter 6 were actually meant to help the community better understand more about the MMP's operations. To be entirely honest, I already knew how the UNR would answer the first 3 questions. I think most people did. I simply wanted to get them on record as doing so I can more effectively point out how they were trying to dodge these questions. I'd also like to point out exactly how the logic being used by the UNR to support and justify the MMP is a clear, dangerous precedent for the community as a whole. I presume the UNR knew this was a test, and so, as such, they answered the questions in such a way as to avoid failing the test or giving answers that no one would support. Later in the video, I'll explain exactly how this test worked and how they attempted to dodge it. The latter 6 questions, as stated before, were actually meant to better understand the MMP's operations, and those will be addressed after the first 3. Now on to question number 1. Does the mass messaging program violate the Xbox Live terms of use? The answer to this question is clear, and both myself and the UNR agree on this topic. Since LinkedIn's presidential address is effectively the same as Seth's reply, I'll simply show the relevant portion of Seth's response to this question. However, if you're interested in watching LinkedIn's direct response, the exact time is indicated below, in which you'll find his response in his presidential address. In Seth's reply, which was reviewed and approved by LinkedIn, he states the following: "Yes, unlike the majority of conversations with LinkedIn, I won't dance around it. It does. This has always been my response." And this is true, he did state this earlier. In my first video regarding the mass messaging program posted on March 26th, Seth also explicitly stated that the MMP does violate the terms of use. To be clear, both UNR and I agree that yes, the MMP does violate the Xbox Live terms of use. Now on to question number 2. Should the HaloClan community follow the Xbox Live terms of use? This is where things get interesting. In the UNR's responses to this question, they attempt to issue relatively clever conditional answers. This is something I entirely expected to happen and was satisfied to see my prediction hold true. In all honesty, although I understand why they did it, I'm saddened to see that they attempted to mislead the community here. They attempted to answer the question in a non-binary manner. This is, almost by its nature, misleading. Simply put, the terms of use is a binary action. You either do follow it, or you don't. The only real answer to this question is either yes or no. There is no gray area. Now, let's look at their answers. Seth says that, yes, the UNR condemns acts that have an either direct or indirect impact on an individual group's real-world lives. Examples include hacking or host booting. The conditional statement is that they only condemn acts that have an either indirect or direct impact on an individual's or group's real-world lives. This answer has nothing to do with the terms of use. In LinkedIn's presidential address, he doesn't give a yes or no answer either. He smartly, and perhaps intentionally, avoids saying yes or no. Sadly, this is a typical and unsurprisingly political answer to an easy question. For clarity, I'll play his response.
Number 2. Should the HaloClan community follow the Xbox Live terms of use? It is the opinion of myself and the web development team that any act violating the Xbox Live terms of use that causes harm to a specific person or group should be absolutely avoided by all individuals.
Now let's be entirely clear. Neither of their responses answers the question. Neither answer references the terms of use in any way. They simply state what they believe to be wrong. They entirely failed to answer the actual question posed. Given how simple and easy to understand the original question was, I must assume that they were intentionally avoiding answering the question. By providing an irrelevant answer to the question, I must conclude that this answer by the UNR was intentionally misleading. With that in mind, Seth's answer does clearly state yes. If I am mistaken, and they were not trying to mislead the community with their answers, then we must assume that the UNR's answer, as approved by the Lingling Killer, to this question is yes. The community should follow the Xbox Live terms of use. Finally, the last part of the test is question number 3. Do you support violating the terms of use? Seth's answer was, not in the general sense. As said before, the UNR condemns acts that impact an individual's real-world life, which includes a large majority of the actions that the terms of use serves to protect against. We're concerned more with morality than legality. Now I'll play the UNR's presidential address.
Number 3. Do you support violations of the terms of use? The UNR does not condone violations of the terms of use for any malicious or potentially harmful purposes.
Again, the UNR is adding conditional statements in an attempt to bypass a binary question. Neither Seth nor Lingling say yes or no. Instead, they issue conditional responses. I think Seth's answer is critical to understanding the UNR's views. He says that the UNR does not support violating terms of use in the general sense. Lingling Killer is against malicious or harmful acts which violate the terms of use. Both these answers, again, are conditional. Both these are intentionally vague, and neither answer the question in a satisfactory manner. Now, as I said before, the first 3 questions were a logic test. The test is similar to a syllogistic test. That's really just a glorified word for deductive reasoning. The test I've created works by asking a series of questions and then using the answers to those questions to determine whether or not something is logical. In reality, I could have done this in 2 questions. The first and third question have effectively served the purpose. The second question was added in an attempt to prove hypocrisy or intentional disregard for the terms of use, and is functionally similar to the third question. The logic works like this. If the mass messaging program does violate the Xbox Live terms of use, and the HaloClan community is supposed to follow the Xbox Live terms of use, then logically the HaloClan community cannot use the mass messaging program. It's really that simple. This is why I've been against the mass messaging program since it was announced. I believe the HaloClan community should follow the Xbox Live terms of use. The mass messaging program violates the Xbox Live terms of use, and thus I oppose the mass messaging program. Logically, we know the following to be true. The UNR supports the mass messaging program. The mass messaging program breaches the Xbox Live terms of use. Thus, the UNR supports violating the Xbox Live terms of use. Again, it's really that simple. There is no grand debate to be held here. The UNR and Lingling Killer have attempted verbal gymnastics to avoid this truth. Even worse, they have been intentionally misleading or simply ignored them. Go back and listen to Lingling Killer's answers to my first 3 questions. He claims he's going to address the specific concerns I've raised, yet he entirely fails to actually answer questions 2 and 3. This isn't a mistake. This is intentional. If he did answer these questions, he would have had to admit this truth. He doesn't give a yes or no answer. He throws conditional statements on to the point at which he's no longer answering my questions. He's simply stating the views of the UNR. In fact, in his video, he explicitly stated that. To be clear, I didn't ask the UNR what they believe to be morally correct. I asked them for answers to simple, basic, neutral questions. The UNR intentionally avoided those questions. Furthermore, Seth's statements are clearly misleading. Again, when asked if the HaloClan community should follow the Xbox Live terms of use, he said yes. Yet, the UNR clearly and demonstrably does not support this view. Now let's remember, this comment was reviewed and approved by Lingling Killer. If this isn't a case of intentional misdirection by the UNR, then I honestly don't know what is. Now, let's quickly revisit Seth's answer to question number 3. Again, I'd like to remind everyone that his reply reflects the views of Lingling Killer and was reviewed and approved by Lingling Killer. In it, he states that, quote, "We're concerned more with morality than legality," end quote. Realistically, I suspected this was their argument the entire time. The terms of use argument was really a non-argument, as I just showed. It's honestly confusing why the UNR even attempted to defend the MMP using terms of use when they couldn't. Now, it appears they want to take the deep dive into the morality of the situation. I fear this might be the case, as the majority of the community isn't likely to fully grasp a moral debate, or even particularly care enough to consider it. In some sense, this feels like a cop-out by the UNR. I'm sure they're aware of this as well, which is why they decided to make this defense. I think that this is really not an argument, though, because it opens up a can of worms they couldn't possibly defend effectively. If they really want to make a moral claim, I'd love to hear it, and I'm entirely confident that I could disprove it with relative ease. However, seeing that we don't know exactly what their moral argument is, that's outside the scope of this video. What we do know is that they would have to defend how they freely broke a consensual contract with Xbox Live regarding the terms of use, and they freely ignored the matter of the consent regarding the Xbox Live user base. Whatever more argument they would make would have to account for these actions. So, Lincoln Killer, if you want to make this a matter of morality, I'd gladly entertain such a debate. I simply ask that you lay out, in its entirety, in front of the community, so that everyone might be informed on this matter. Now, with the first 3 questions out of the way, I'll cover the latter 6, and the rest of the points raised. This will be relatively brief, as I don't view these points as important to the debate as the previous 3. Now, question number 4. Should we report violations of the terms of use? Both Seth's and Ling Killer's replies were reasonable, so I see no need to consider this point further. Point number 5. What happens to the MMP if Ling Killer is voted out? Again, nothing unusual here. We'll move on. Number 6. If MMP accounts are banned, will the program continue? I still do not entirely understand that this decision cannot be made in advance, but regardless, we know from Seth's previous comments on my old video that it takes between 5 and 15 minutes for a new account to be added to the MMP. Again, this is a low-risk gamble from the UNR. Knowing they do not value the terms of use, it's difficult to think of a reason why they would voluntarily stop unless they are nearly insta-banned on these accounts. Number 7. How does the MMP's operating procedures determined within the UNR? Are they entirely dictated by Ling Killer, or are they voted upon? If they are voted upon, who votes? I'd like to raise some concerns that there appears to be no actual governance over the MMP besides casual agreement between 2 individuals. For a program that literally affects everyone that plays online Halo, this oversight appears to be insufficient, to say the least. Number 8. Will the community be able to verify how the MMP works, or is it entirely based upon blind trust? This is still a concern of mine. Seth made clear that he's the only one who actually has access to the source code. There is no two-key rule here. Even Ling Killer's understanding of the program is based upon trust. In one person. That's concerning. There is no way to verify the MMP doesn't message non-Halo players. There is no way to verify the MMP doesn't message individuals twice, etc. All we have is blind trust, Ling Killer included. Number 9. Does the UNR intend to activate the MMP? If so, when? The window we have is sometime between now and the launch of Halo 5. That's barely an answer, but given the current political situation regarding the MMP, I understand why it might be unclear this time. That's all for this video. I mainly wanted to discuss the first 3 questions, which is why I dedicated so much time in this video to that particular topic. The latter 6 are meant to be informative about how the UNR treats the MMP. Those are mainly used in order to provide the community more accurate understanding of what the MMP does, how the UNR treats it, etc. In closing, if the UNR does want to make the MMP debate a debate on morality, they can. They do not, however, have any support in the terms of use. Over the course of the last several weeks, Ling Killer has danced around this fact. In fact, even Seth, a member of his web development team, pointed this out in his comment. I found it troubling that the UNR has been so deceptive about a basic truth, which is why I decided to make my opinions on this topic known to begin with. Again, that's all for this video. I'd like to thank everyone for their time. As I said before, the MMP topic is a precedent-setting event within the community and should be considered seriously. I hope that individuals in the community may more accurately and critically evaluate the UNR's actions regarding the MMP and their policies. I'd like to thank everybody for watching. This is Power Out.